Moving on, let's talk about our member-specific segments. Paul,
Me.
tell me, what are we going to be talking about you and games?
Well, we don't have a lot of time because we're running fairly long, but I figured
we'll be okay.
Okay, well, I feel like we should go through. Well, I want to go through like moments in my life that have shaped my board game persona style. Just my whatever you want to call that.
So how I got damaged to this point.
Here's how I got to here. Like my backstory. So
I feel like I'm about to watch The Joker.
That is not inaccurate. So I think there are three monikers you can give me, or three aspects about me that will apply to games.
Would you like me to guess?
Go for it.
I don't think you want me to guess.
No, you should go for it. You should go for it.
Would Gamebreaker be one, or
that's the obvious one?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's the obvious one. I would say the tester. Sort of what I think. Maybe it's part of the same thing. I think you are mostly interested in drama in the game and fun in the game.
Well,
more than winning or losing. You want to. You don't want to just break a game. You want to break the person.
Well, that is the metagamer, isn't it? Which and the last thing that you know about me is that I'm a bit of a gambler.
Big time.
So
we have family conversations about this not infrequently.
And so I was looking back at my life and I was going like, where did this come from? And I remember this specific moment. I was probably 5 or something, and I was playing Candyland with I can't remember who, but I was stuck in the swamp. And so if you remember the molasses
swamp,
that's right. You need a specific card to come up, and then you'd win. But someone's from behind is chasing me, and I'm stuck, and I'm going like, okay, I'm gonna will that card to come out. 1, 2, 3, boom, and it comes out, and I win. Yes, the heavens cheer, and I think that's the first moment where I, even though there's no agency in Candyland.
Did you think you were Neo?
Of course, I still think I'm Neo. But here's the thing. At least the way I see my specific gambling paradigm is there is the math of winning and the math of your gameplay. And casinos, there is a gap. The gap is generally 1 or 2%. But in between those 1 and 2%, the casino builds billion-dollar casinos because everyone loses the grind. And the gambler in me goes but I can bridge that gap with my persona. My personhood can overcome that 2%. And it started with Candyland. and so I think that's where my gambling propensity started. The next moment in my formative childhood was probably when I discovered Fool's Mate in checkmate, in chess.
Sure.
I invented it. Oh my God, it was me all by myself. I did it. No one in the history of chess has ever come with it. I am a genius. And that was the predecessor of Gamebreaker. You're like, oh, I broke it. This game doesn't even work anymore without. So that's what that was Gamebreaker. But then we flash forward to another 6 years, and we're playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
And I was playing against someone. Somehow we got to dueling. And
have I ever played a role playing game with you?
A Pakatom.
Oh, a Pocket Top, of course, a Pocket Top. For everyone that does not know, I ran a short campaign of Apocalypse World with Paul and
Matt,
Alfred, and Jim Fitzgerald.
I think was Trey in it too. Trey was in it.
Trey was in it. Trey was in it as well. Yes.
And it was between Tom Apocalypse or Pocket Tom. I think we went with a Pocket Tom. Anyway, and this guy he cast Dig on me. And so I fell into a hole.
Sure.
And which is fine. But then he cast Dispel Magic. And
The hole filled in.
And I just died. and I was like going, oh my God. It just completely broke the, how I saw.
It reminds me of like Grimtooth's traps. Do you know what that is?
I don't.
There were these books of unique traps that GMs would buy, and then they would put that trap in a dungeon. And I remember like one of the worst ones was the whipped cream dungeon, the whipped cream pit.
Sure.
Because you fall into the pit. And you suffocate and drown instantly because
because whipped cream,
everything's slippery and you can't breathe and you can't breathe it in and you die instantly because you can't float in it.
Exactly.
It's one of those. It was a very similar
Sure.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. And so with this, it really started me thinking between the Fool's Mate, this kind of idea of there are ways to break things the unintended things that you can do to break. And it really just, it's that hacker mentality. Not that I'm a hacker, but if I were, I couldn't tell you.
You're not a hacker.
And then I had my first metagaming experience that I remember was Pictionary.
Okay.
Pictionary is one of those, you play Pictionary, you draw, blah, blah. And at this one game, I remember the word was cactus, and the team on the team I was playing, they were drawing desert and blah blah, and I go, no, and I just drew very slowly the arm of the cactus as you would see in Bugs Bunny or something, and before that arm was completed, someone said cactus, and I realized at that moment that it's not just what you draw, it's also how fast you draw and your demeanor and how you draw. In fact, your drawing is kind of irrelevant. It is your ability to communicate.
Right. So by drawing slowly, you're indicating this is very simple. This is not a big, huge, long thing. I draw you this one thing, and you should get it.
And it's emphasis. But more importantly, the game is actually has nothing to do with drawing. It has actually your ability to communicate an idea. And drawing happens to be one of the few things you can use, but it's not the only thing you can use. And I realized, life is kind of like that. We play these games and they're not, exactly for example, I'll when everyone in our game group has a certain persona, I feel like when Jesse plays a game, he plays it to win. That is, and that competitiveness is how he approaches life. Trey is designing the perfect engine, and he kind of approaches life that way. I'm a person who really am playing people, and so I'm thinking I can find the shortcut, the insight by knowing people. And Dimitri, for all of it, thinks that he can win just by putting his head down and just holding tight and bracing and
hoping no one notices he's doing well.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Guys, Dimitri's winning. I am not winning. I'm not. Look at you. You have all these points. I am not winning.
And so with that, it stemmed from Pictionary, from that moment where I go oh, there's an approach on how you're dealing with everything that isn't what the rules. There's this other layer. And so that was that moment where that came.
Sure.
And when I was in Australia, there was a casino in Alice Springs. And I got fixated with craps and blackjack. And so craps because there's the thrill, and blackjack because it's one of the few games that you can actually beat the casino odds if you play it right. And
has my wife told you our stories in Vegas of blackjack?
That you have? I've been with you in Vegas with blackjack.
Sure.
But it was this aspect where it's giving the gambler in me the bad thing. But there was this moment in what you call it in my plays where I just had to stop because I had this discipline of I'm gonna go to the casino, 10 minutes, an hour, 4 hours. I'm going to make $100. I'm going to come back home. That's what I'm going to do, B. B's my wife. And she goes, okay, whatever. And at the...
good impression.
At the end of 3 months, she goes why isn't everyone doing this, Paul? And I go, I don't know. But then we went to Melbourne, and there's a casino, the Crown Plaza in Melbourne. And I'm playing, and I'm going this is a grind. God, I hate this. I'm just going to bet more. And so I'm betting like, my bankroll does not, warrant what I'm betting. I'm like betting like $100, doubling down, like, and I have like maybe like $1,000, and it's just completely risky. And and I made a bunch of money that thing, but I had to stop. I go like, I can't. I'm too close to. I'm searching for the thrill, not the money. And when that came about, like, oh crap. Yeah, I have to stop. It's just not. That's not a good aspect of me.
I used to play a lot of poker. I mean, we had the Silver Lake Rounders is a group of actors, and it's all people in the movie industry, like some I wouldn't say famous, but not unknown actors, writers, directors, executives, and so on and so forth. And one of our guys actually he was a winner on the World Poker Tour and stuff like that. So it was a fairly high level of competition. And I would play there. They would have a monthly tournament, and it was absolutely fantastic. I absolutely loved it. And at a certain point, I would occasionally go to Hollywood Park Casino and to brush up on it. And the moment I would go into that actual casino and play it, even though I was doing okay, like I wasn't doing great, but I wasn't doing horrible.
Sure.
I'm a decent poker player. I'm not great, but I hold my own. It was a grind, and I was just like, I'm the guy that's talking, right? I'm the guy that's not worried about my tells. I'm actually getting more information, or I'm putting people into a psychological state that's unused to what they're in, and I get more of an advantage out of that than you're getting from me most of the time. Not every time, but most of the time. And I love that. And these people, at the casino, they're not engaging. At Silver Lake Rounders, they know me. I know them. I'm joking around and all that sort of stuff, and I'm having a blast. But actually playing poker and actually trying to make money these places, it was such a soulless grind. I couldn't take it.
Well, people are playing for insulin money.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So that was like that really took away a lot of joy from playing. Just the idea of when I had to step away from the gambling because that thrill. Mm-hmm. But that thrill came back when we moved to Florida for a bit, and we had a Catan, Tiddlywinks. I mean, Catan. And I used to play with my wife and this other couple of ours. And what I found was like, I was better. So what I would do is I would just explore the space. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, what I would really do is try to get my wife to the point where she could almost win. And then her eyes would turn black, shark dead eyes. And then she'd be like, I could hear her salivate at the prospect of winning. And I was like, going, this is great.
Should we talk about the family games of Seven Wonders we've had?
Oh, sure.
We play Seven Wonders as a family with, it's me, my wife, my two kids, Paul, his wife, the grandma, and Greg, who's the brother of them. That's 7 people. So we play this 7-player Seven Wonders that we will play. It's the one game that Grandma and B both and Greg both know, and I don't have to teach them every single time. And it is hilarious that Paul will be at one. Invariably, we're never near each other. He's at one end of the table. I'm at the other end of the table. And we're just looking at who we're sitting next to, and Paul and I just glance at each other over the table, and we're trying to figure out, okay, who am I going to try and help? Because it's card drafting, so am I going to give the card that I know that Mom wants,
or my niece,
or my niece, exactly. And yeah, so we do similar things like that at the dinner table. Just not throwing the game, but definitely putting a finger on the scale a little bit.
But I feel that you do it because you love everyone, and I do it because I want to see my wife, and even now your daughter, get really oh, I can win. I'm gonna kill everyone in this room so I can win. I love that. I love that pulling away of the veil to see that naked ambition.
My daughter is a killer.
She is a killer. Have
you ever won a game of memory against her?
I have not. You know,
I don't think anybody can.
Yeah, like she's not far from the tree.
Now, I want to ask you a question, Paul, because here's the thing.
Yeah.
In this game, Paladins, that we just played,
yeah.
you lost because you overemphasized the one action that was gambling in the game.
Yeah.
Taking the suspicion cards that either give you no money or 1 money or 2 money.
Absolutely.
And you did it twice as much, 3 times as much as anybody else at the table.
Absolutely.
Right? And you lost because of that. And yet, when we play Ricochet Robots, which is a fast mental mathematical calculation game, you and I are the tend to be the best at it. Anybody can win, but you and I tend to do really good. You're really, really good at the math, and you're really good at all these sorts of things. And I think that this predilection of yours is actually.
Oh, it's absolutely the case. Like, you know, like I've come to realize.
You know what I'm saying? It's holding you. It's holding you back.
But here's the thing: like, I don't come to game night to win. In fact, like, you know, if I really think about it, I come to lose. It's this weird thing. I was thinking about it. I go, nothing, like when we play Avalon, nothing makes me feel better than being beaten. Not by a lot. I do like winning.
Sure.
But nothing, like being beaten means that I need to grow. Like, you know, and when I play games that gamble, like I can sit down and I go, okay, here's the optimal move. Here's like I believe I could get better at any game that we have here to the point where I could win consistently just by study. I think anyone could do that. I think anyone could just go like, oh, here's how like if I play Fresh Fish, I'm going to go, here's actually the better way. I think if you just sit down and spend the hours to go like, here's what I'm doing wrong, and here's what I need to adjust, we could do it. But the problem, it winds up being like blackjack again. It winds up being like this grind that you go, I don't want to come here to grind out like a win. I don't care about winning that much. Like what I care about, which comes. This is very interesting. When it happened on Tuesday when we're playing, you know, Flappy Birds, I go like, the only thing I'm really looking for is everyone laughing. Right. You know, everyone laughing at like, oh, that was impossible. That's all I'm really looking for. That's what I come to the game night for, is for us to all have a good time. And I have to balance that because Trey wants one thing, Jesse wants, Dimitri wants another thing, and I'll push the scales, you know, as far as like the social aspect to one or the other. But in the end, like, you know, if everyone can either be laughing or they go like, oh my God, that was so good. Those are the two things that, you know, that I want.
I feel like that's different than what I'm talking about, though, because what I'm actually talking about is that you gravitate toward things that are not your strength, and it has no effect on whether or not other people are enjoying their game.
Give me an example, like the gambling here. Well,
yeah, nobody was like,
oh no, that's I'm saying.
Because nothing in Paladins affects anybody else. That didn't affect anybody else.
I was going to say the reason I did that was because that's this type of game that I play. A looser game, like in poker, I play loose aggressive,
sure,
as opposed to tight aggressive, and it's very swingy.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
But that is
you need a big bankroll to sustain it, but if you can, that's a very good way to go.
And so with that, like, you know, like I played the 2 games I play at Paladin. I played that way. I was going like, I need to see, like, as an engineer, I need to see the limits of what the paradigm can sustain. Mm-hmm. And so, like, you know, I'm going, and you know, the first game we played, like, I was like 2 points away from you. That 2 points is basically two of my 0 cards. If I had money, you know, if I got money on those cards, you know,
that's saving a guy versus saving an action.
So like, you know, yeah, like this last game was less good, but like, you know, and with Paladins I play it like Keyflower. So like, you know, that's just something I need to adjust if I'm going to play Paladins more. But
eventually we'll talk about Keyflower. I'll say to people that don't know what it is, Richard Breeze did these a series of games. Key is always in the title. Keyflower is probably the best of them. They're very interesting. They look like the sweetest, nicest, most pastoral Village of the Happy Nice People games, and they are the most brutal, cutthroat.
I believe that, you know, like
Stomp your grandmother games.
Before the expansion came out, I believe we stopped playing Keyflower because of how I played Keyflower. Because I would have all these men and everyone be out of actions, and then it'd be the next 10 minutes each round watching me do my actions. People go, no, I don't want to play. I don't want to see that.
You might be right. You might be right about that, because I say, should we play Keyflower? And a whole bunch of people are always like, no. I'm like, why? Come on. No. It's not. First of all, what he's doing is not that unique. It's not totally something you could do if you chose to. It's not
exactly.
It's not
exactly. It's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science. I think, Paul, is there any last points you want to make?
Because I will say, like, in the last movement is coming to our group. Like, in our group, like from like going from Catan to here, I'm able to do all three. I'm able to gamble. I'm able to game break, and I'm able to metagame. I'm able to really do all these things at once, which I really appreciate. Like, it's why I'm very protective of the group. Like, as it's dynamic, because, it's like a vampire. You don't want to kill the people. You want to just drain them so you can sustain.
No, it is a wonderful thing when you have a group of people that love to come and game and they love to compete and try to win. But there's other things also going on.
Exactly.
They're looking for opportunities of fun. They're looking for opportunities to get into other people's head, which isn't directly related to that.
Exactly.
But we know each other, and we're comfortable enough with each other that we can do that, and we're not hurting feelings for the most part, and have a really fun time.
Do you know how hard it would be for me to find another group because I'm quite confronting when it comes to that.
Oh yeah, no, you're a horror.
And so, like, the fact that I'm your brother-in-law, like, you just forced me upon everyone. You're like, oh, well, I have to use my brother-in-law. I go, yeah, well, you're stuck with me now, guys.
I will say that when I first was bringing you to game night, there were some people that were like, so what is it with Paul?
Well, I want to say this. I announced my presence with authority with wildlife.
Oh, yes, you did. Yes, Croc strategy. You did, and people were asking after that, like, so is Paul going to be coming a lot? He had this epic game where he and friend of the pod, Chuck Tolman, one of them did something antagonistic toward the other one, and then neither of them would back down. They were just fighting each other the whole time. And I think it was a 5 or 6 player game.
Yeah, 6 player.
4 of us had scores in the 80s, and you two had scores of 10, 8, 0.
But I think everyone won. I think everyone, or at least 4 people won, 2 people lost.
We were laughing so hard.
Yeah. It was great. It was great. It was very memorable. It still gets brought up. So,
Paul, I would never not have you at my game table. You are a joy and a treasure.
Do I hear a butt coming up?
Everybody else I chose to bring to game
That's
night.
right. But you have to with me.
With you, I have to. And I'm kind of happy about it because you might not have been my choice. Folks, that was it for what I consider to be a pretty epic trip down memory lane with Old School.